Rain came down over Godric's Hollow as if the heavens had at last found something worth mourning. It sheeted over the crooked roofs, hissed in the gutters, and struck the old Dumbledore house with 1,000 cold fingers. The windows glowed weakly behind cracked panes. Inside, dust still trembled in the air from the last spell cast there. A chair lay split against the wall. A curtain smoked in blue embers. The smell of scorched wood and old lavender clung to everything, mingled now with the iron scent of blood. Aberforth knelt on the threshold with Ariana gathered in his arms. He had not cried at first. The grief had been too large, too sudden, too monstrous to find the ordinary doors out of him. He had merely rocked back and forth, pressing his cheek to his sister's pale hair, making a sound that did not belong to any creature Albus had ever heard. Then the rain had come through the open door, and Aberforth had looked up as though the sky itself had insulted her. "You," he said. Albus stood 3 paces away, wand still in hand. His fingers had gone numb around it. He could not remember raising it. He could not remember lowering it. He could remember light, red, white, gold. 3 streams crossing in a narrow room. Fury and pride and panic all braided together. He could remember Ariana's breath catching. He could remember the silence after. Beside him, Gellert did not tremble. That was the first thing Albus hated him for, and the first thing he admired. Gellert's face was wet with rain, but his eyes were dry. They were fixed not on the body, nor on Aberforth, nor on the ruin of the room, but on Albus. It was not indifference. Albus would later wish it had been. Indifference would have been easier to condemn. What burned in Gellert's eyes was calculation sharpened by terror, and behind it, devotion of a kind so ruthless it looked almost holy. "We must go," Gellert said softly. Aberforth's head snapped toward him. "Go." The word became a curse. Gellert did not flinch. "The neighbors have seen light. Ministry men will come. They will ask questions. They will take wands. They will separate us. They will bury her and call this an accident, and call us boys." Aberforth rose, still holding Ariana. "Say her name." Gellert's jaw tightened. Aberforth stepped forward. "Say her name, you golden bastard." Albus moved between them without thinking. The motion made Aberforth stare at him as though he had struck him again. "Don't," Albus whispered. "Dawn?" Aberforth's laugh was raw. "That's what you say? Don't? She's dead, Albus? She's dead because you wanted the world, because he promised it to you?" Albus looked at Ariana. She seemed smaller than she had in life, as the dead always did, though she had been small enough already. Her lashes lay dark against cheeks too white for any summer. Her hands, usually restless, were folded by accident against Aberforth's sleeve. The terror that had so often visited her face was gone. That mercy undid him more completely than the wound. "I didn't mean—" "No," Aberforth said. "You never mean. You dream. You write. You talk about greater goods while other people pay the price." The phrase struck Albus like a spell. For a moment he saw himself from afar. Brilliant, praised, imprisoned by a sick sister and a dead mother and a brother who smelled of goats and resentment. He saw Gellert arriving like a comet, carrying languages and legends, and the promise that their minds were not sins, but instruments. He saw letters written by candlelight, the Hallows, the defeat of death, the liberation of wizard kind, the end of hiding, the end of smallness. Then he saw Ariana at 14, laughing once because a moth had landed on his nose. The world narrowed to that. Gellert's hand brushed his sleeve. "Albus." There was a plea in it now, hidden beneath command. Aberforth saw it. "Choose then." Rain hammered the roof. Somewhere down the lane, a door opened. Voices murmured. A lantern bloomed in the mist. Aberforth held Ariana like judgment. "Choose her," he said, "or choose him." Albus closed his eyes. If he stayed, there would be inquests. There would be questions no spell could answer. There would be a funeral in wet earth and a cottage full of silence. There would be Aberforth's hatred, deserved and endless. There would be years of teaching, perhaps, years of restraint, years of being good because goodness was the only wall left between him and what he knew he could become. If he went, there would be no forgiveness, but there might be purpose large enough to bury grief beneath it. He opened his eyes. "I loved her," Albus said. Aberforth's face broke. Albus turned away. Gellert seized his arm, and together they stepped into the rain. Behind them, Aberforth screamed his brother's name, not as a call, but as a sentence. Albus did not look back. Not when the first ministry apparition cracked in the lane. Not when blue light flared behind him. Not when the cottage door slammed. Not when the village vanished in the turn of Gellert's spell, and the world became wind, darkness, and the terrible freedom of flight. Only when they landed on a black hillside above the sea did Albus fall to his knees. Gellert stood over him, cloak snapping in the gale. For a long while neither spoke. Then Albus said, "If she died for nothing, I will not survive it." Gellert crouched before him. His blonde hair shone like a blade in the storm. "Then we make it not nothing," he said. Albus looked at him through rain and tears. "We make it the last innocent death of a hidden age," Gellert whispered. "We end the cowardice that made your family hide her. We end the laws that made power shameful. We build a world where no girl is locked away, no genius is chained to a cottage, no wizard bows to men who would burn him if they knew his name." Hey. Albus wanted to reject it. He wanted to strike him. He wanted to crawl back through the storm and beg Aberforth to kill him. Instead, he heard himself ask, "And if the world refuses?" Gellert's smile was sorrowful, beautiful, and damned. "Then we teach it." They did not flee like criminals. That was the first lie Gellert taught him to survive. Criminals ran without direction, shedding names, money, and courage as dogs shed water. Albus and Gellert moved with purpose. They crossed borders under borrowed stars, slept in ruined abbeys, traded spells for bread in villages where old women still left milk for household spirits, and spoke in whispers beneath bridges while ministry owls passed overhead like pale hunting hawks. The newspapers named them suspects before they named them visionaries. Ariana's death appeared in the smallest column of the Prophet, beneath an advertisement for self-stirring cauldrons. Tragic magical accident in Godric's Hollow. Young woman dead. Brother questioned. Family requests privacy. Albus read it once in a tavern near the Rhine, and then set the paper on fire without drawing his wand. Gellert watched him carefully. "They have already made her small." Albus stared at the curling ash. "Do not use her. I am not. You are always using something." "Yes," Gellert said. "So are men who build hospitals, laws, schools, armies, and graves. The sin is not use. The sin is waste." "Ah, Gadamtei." Albus struck him then. The tavern fell silent. A dozen faces turned. Gellert touched the blood at the corner of his mouth and smiled, not in mockery but in recognition. He had found the wound and pressed it. Albus hated him for that too, but he did not leave. Winter found them in the mountains, where the old magical families of the continent kept fortresses carved into stone, hidden by charms older than the ministries that pretended to govern them. There, Gellert began to speak not as a fugitive but as an heir. He knew names, feuds, bloodlines, humiliations. He knew which patriarch's son had been expelled from Durmstrang, which French aunt despised the statute of secrecy, which Italian widow kept goblin silver under her chapel floor and dreamed of revenge against Muggle taxmen. Albus watched doors open for him. He watched suspicion become fascination, fascination become allegiance. Gellert did not promise them comfort. Comfort was a merchant's promise. He promised them history. He told them that their ancestors had shaped storms and healed kings, that their children now learned to shrink themselves for the safety of those who feared them. He spoke of wizardkind not as a species, but as a crown mislaid. And then, when the room had warmed to him, he turned to Albus. At first, Albus said little. Grief had made him quiet, and guilt had made quietness feel like penance. Yet silence could not last in a hall full of minds duller than his own. They misquoted law. They misunderstood power. They spoke of ruling muggles like farmers spoke of breeding horses, crudely, stupidly, with appetite where strategy should be. One night in Bavaria, after a red-faced baron declared that muggles ought to be chained in public squares as reminders of proper order, Albus rose from his chair. "No," he said. The hall stilled. The baron blinked. "No? Fear breeds rebellion. Humiliation breeds martyrs. Slavery breeds sabotage. You are not describing rule. You are describing a tantrum dressed in old robes." Gellert leaned back, delighted. Albus continued, voice soft enough that the hall strained to hear him. "If wizardkind steps from shadow merely to become a more spectacular tyranny, we will deserve the knives that come for us in the dark. We must not conquer the non-magical world. We must govern it, quietly at first, invisibly where needed, openly where possible. We must guide its wars away from annihilation, its sciences away from catastrophe, its laws toward..." The baron's face purpled. "And who decides this salvation?" Albus looked at Gellert. There, in that instant, was the hinge of everything. Gellert could have answered. He could have claimed the room, the movement, the future. Instead, he only watched Albus with shining eyes. "We do," Albus said. "Not I, not he. We." Afterward, Gellert found him on the battlements. Snow moved through the dark like ash. "You were magnificent," he said. "I was arrogant." "Yes, that should trouble you." "It would if you were wrong." Albus gripped a frozen stone. Below them, pine forests bent under moonlight. Somewhere beyond those mountains lay Britain, Aberforth, Ariana's grave. The thought came less often now, and that frightened him more than the thought itself. "I am not doing this for power," Albus said. Gellert came to stand beside him. "Of course you are." Albus turned sharply. Gellert's expression was gentle. "Not power over, power to prevent, to repair, to shape. You think power is made clean by denying you want it. It is not. It becomes clean when yoked to purpose. And who yokes yours?" Gellert smiled. "You." The answer struck deeper than flattery. "It was strategy, yes, but not only strategy." Gellert had a talent for offering chains that felt like crowns. By spring, they had followers in 7 countries. By summer, they had gold, safe houses, informants in 3 ministries, and a symbol copied in chalk on alley walls from Prague to Paris. The triangle, the circle, the line. The Deathly Hallows became not a children's mark, but a banner of inevitability. Albus designed their doctrine by candlelight. He wrote of stewardship, secrecy transformed into guardianship, law remade by those wise enough to bear it. He forbade cruelty in their early codes, forbade spectacle, forbade pointless bloodshed. Gellert agreed to every line, and if his smile sometimes lingered on the word early, Albus trained himself not to see it. At night, when they were alone, they still spoke as boys. They spoke of books, wand lore, ancient magic, the strange loneliness of being understood. Sometimes Gellert would read aloud in German while Albus corrected his Latin notes. Sometimes Albus would wake from dreams of Ariana and find Gellert sitting nearby, awake, saying nothing. Once, in a ruined monastery above Salzburg, Albus confessed that he could no longer remember the exact sound of his sister's laugh. Gellert took his hand. "We will build something worthy of her," he said. Albus believed him because the alternative was emptiness, and emptiness was the one enemy he had never learned to defeat. The first council was held beneath a castle that did not appear on any Muggle map and appeared on magical ones only when blood was spilled on the parchment. It belonged to a family too old to be rich in the ordinary way. Their wealth was in portraits that remembered Roman emperors, in curses buried beneath orchards, in marriages arranged so carefully that love seemed a peasant superstition. They gave Albus and Gellert a hall below the chapel, where the air smelled of stone, candle fat, and secrets. 37 came. Some wore velvet. Some wore traveling cloaks still wet from rain. Some had the pale, pinched faces of bureaucrats who had spent their lives signing cowardly laws and had only now discovered the courage to regret them. Others looked like duelists, smugglers, professors, widows, fanatics. All of them stared at Albus when he entered. He knew why. Gellert, they understood. Gellert was beauty sharpened into threat, youth made imperial, a prince without a throne and therefore dangerous. Albus unsettled them differently. He looked less like a conqueror than a scholar who had wandered into a war and begun correcting its grammar. Yet power gathered around him without display. It was in the stillness of his hands, the mildness of his gaze, the sense that if he chose to raise his voice, the walls would listen. Gellert spoke first. He gave them fire. He spoke of humiliation, exile, the absurdity of hiding dragons while muggles built cannons, the indignity of modifying memories because a farmer looked up at the wrong moment. He named the Statute of Secrecy a treaty signed by fear and enforced by mediocrity. He made their shame feel noble. He made their anger feel ancient. Then Albus gave them architecture. No revolution survives its own appetite, he said. You may topple ministries, but without courts you will breed vendettas. You may reveal magic, but without control you will breed panic. You may defeat Muggle governments, but without administration you will inherit famine, disease, and chaos. We are not here to indulge resentment. We are here to assume responsibility. A French defector laughed under his breath. For the greater good? The phrase passed through the hall like a draft. Albus had written it once in a letter. Gellert had carved it into speeches. Now it returned to him transformed, heavier, almost alive. Yes, Albus said. Gellert's eyes flickered toward him. Albus stepped closer to the table. Not the comfort of the powerful. Not vengeance dressed as justice. The greater good means the future judged above the present's vanity. It means we accept burdens lesser minds will call crimes because they lack the courage to measure centuries. It means we do not ask whether power should be used. Power is always used. The only question is whether it will be used by the frightened, the foolish, the cruel, or by those who understand its cost. Nay, a witch in mourning black leaned forward. And do you understand its cost, Mr. Dumbledore? Ariana's face rose in him so suddenly he almost stopped breathing. Yes, he said, more than you know. That was the night the movement ceased to be a conspiracy and became a government in embryo. They formed circles of command. They appointed regional hands. They built schools within schools, teaching gifted students charms their professors feared to name. They placed healers in Muggle hospitals to watch epidemics, obliviators in parliaments, curse breakers in banks, seers in newspaper offices. Every act could be defended as mercy. Every mercy widened the door. Albus insisted on records, names, dates, consequences. He would not have them become a mob with a banner. He wrote laws before they held territory, rules for trials before they had prisoners, restrictions on memory charms, prohibitions against torture, penalties for private revenge. He constructed moral walls with obsessive care, and each time Gellert praised them. You see? Gellert said one evening, pouring wine neither of them drank. This is why I needed you. I would have made an army. You are making an age. Albus did not look up from the parchment. An age can still be wicked. Not if you build it. That is a dangerous faith. All faith is dangerous. Their victories were quiet at first. A Muggle arms shipment vanished before it reached a border where war had begun to simmer. A minister known for persecuting magical families resigned after waking with memories of crimes he had not yet committed but found entirely plausible. A plague in a Polish village ended overnight, credited by local priests to a saint whose statue wept dignity. A child obscurial in Hungary was taken not to an asylum but to a hidden manor where Albus himself sat with her for 3 days until the magic stopped tearing at her skin. That child's name was Alona. She was 7, with black hair and eyes too old for her face. When she first saw Albus, she hid beneath a table and turned every spoon in the room into a wasp. Gellert wanted to stun her. Albus only transfigured the wasps into silver fish and let them swim through the air until she laughed. "You cannot save every Ariana," Gellert warned later. Albus watched Alona sleeping in a chair by the fire. "No, but..." The answer displeased Gellert because it was not agreement. Rumors grew faster than their plans. In London, old school acquaintances spoke of Albus with pity, then confusion, then fear. At the Hog's Head Inn, Aberforth broke a man's jaw for saying his brother's name admiringly. At the ministry, committees formed, dissolved, and formed again, each more frightened than the last. Elphias Doge wrote letters. The first begged, the second reasoned, the third accused. Albus kept them in a locked drawer and answered none. Then came the fourth, delivered by Phoenix. Not Fawkes. Fawkes had not yet chosen him in that life. This bird was ash-gray and severe, and it dropped the envelope into Albus' hand as though ashamed of the errand. "Albus, I do not know what grief has made of you, but I know what you were. Come home. Whatever has happened, whatever you have done, it is not too late until you decide it is. Aberforth will not read your name in print. He leaves the room when others speak of Europe. I found Ariana's grave untended last week and put flowers there myself. Please, for the sake of the boy who once believed goodness was not weakness, come home. Elphias." Albus read it twice. Then he folded it and placed it with the others. Gellert, standing at the window, said, "You may go if you wish." Albus heard the trap in the kindness. If he went, he would be the man who abandoned destiny for guilt. If he stayed, he would be the man who mistook guilt for sacrifice. Either way, Gellert would know him. "No," Albus said. Outside, the first snow of the year began to fall. In the hall below, 37 followers had become hundreds. Their whispers had become oaths. Their oaths had become policy. And somewhere in the dark heart of Europe, history bent toward them. The sanctuary became Albus' argument against his own damnation. It stood in a valley in the Carpathians, hidden beneath weather so foul that even shepherds avoided the pass. To Muggle eyes there was only rock, pine, and mist. To those who knew the charm, towers emerged from the mountainside like bones from earth. Their windows warm with candlelight, their courtyards full of children who had once shattered windows by crying or set fire to bedsheets in their sleep. Albus visited whenever strategy allowed. The children feared Gellert. Most adults did too, though many mistook that fear for loyalty. He was kind when kindness served, charming when charm opened doors, merciless when mercy threatened delay. Children saw such things more clearly than ministers. When Gellert entered a room, they became polite. When Albus entered, they became loud. They brought him broken toys and cursed buttons, asked impossible questions, demanded stories, climbed his robes, and showed him accidental magic as though presenting treasure to a king. He mended a wooden horse for a Czech boy whose parents had tried to drown him. He taught Alona to breathe through surges of power. He sat beside a German girl who could hear lies and therefore trusted no one. In those rooms, among the bruised and the bewildered, the greater good still had a human face. One evening, after a boy named Thomas turned every flame in the dining hall green, Albus found Gellert waiting beneath an archway. "You are loved here," Gellert said. Albus watched Alona chase emerald sparks between the tables. Love is not a qualification for rule. No, but it is useful. Albus's expression hardened. "Do not. Gellert raised his hands. I mean only that people follow what they believe will protect their children. You have given our cause its purest proof. Our cause? Albus said. Or your recruitment? The air changed. Gellert stepped closer, his voice low. Do you think sanctuaries defend themselves? Do you think these children remain safe because you tell bedtime stories? Gold protects them. Wards protect them. Fear protects them. Men who would experiment on them must know there are consequences. No. And if consequences become cruelty, then you will restrain me. You say that as if restraint is a compliment. It is, from me. They stood in silence while green firelight moved over the stones. The first death carried out in their name happened 3 weeks later. A Muggle official in Austria had discovered a magical family and ordered the father imprisoned, the mother examined by physicians, the children sent to separate institutions. Such things had happened before the statute and after it, beneath different names and excuses. Their agents intervened too late for the mother. She died under restraint, her magic bound by iron and ignorance. The children survived. Gellert ordered the official executed. Albus learned of it after. He found Geller in the map room, moving small silver markers across Europe with the Elder Wand. Each marker represented a cell, ally, danger, opportunity. The dead man was not marked. You killed him. Gellert did not turn. No idea. I ordered it. Nani? You distinguish? I refuse false humility. There should have been a trial. There was evidence. There should have been judgment beyond your anger. At that, Geller turned. My anger? He dissected a witch in a hospital basement while her children screamed in another room. And so we become cleaner by killing him in a cellar? We become safer. Albus's wand was in his hand before he knew he had drawn it. Gellert looked down at it with no surprise at all. There was sadness in his face, but not fear. Never fear. Will you duel me over him? He asked. Albus wanted to say yes. He wanted to let the room blaze, to settle with violence what reason could no longer mend. Instead, he saw Ariana again, caught between spells cast by boys who loved victory more than care. His hand shook. Gellert saw that too. Every ruler signs death warrants, he said softly. The honest ones know it. I am not a ruler. Gellert's laugh was almost tender. Albus. The name was a mirror. Within a year, their movement had courts. Within 2, it had prisons. Albus built both, telling himself that structure was mercy. The courts were fairer than vengeance. The prisons were cleaner than dungeons. Prisoners were fed, recorded, questioned under regulation. No one was to be killed without review. And yet men disappeared. Not often. Not publicly. Never in ways Albus could prove without tearing apart the machine he had built. Gellert's followers had learned the space between law and instruction, between desire and command. They anticipated him. They pleased him. And when Albus objected, Gellert gave ground just far enough to keep him. You win more from me than any conscience ever has, he said once. That is not enough. It is more than the world had before you. This too was a trap. Not because it was false, but because it was partly true. War among Muggles grew uglier. Machines advanced. Borders hardened. Newspapers printed hatred in neat columns. Albus read reports of gas, artillery, starving villages. Boys marched into mud by leaders with no magic and less wisdom. Each horror arrived like evidence. How could anyone look upon the ordinary governance of men and declare wizard intervention the greater sin? So he intervened. Quietly at first, then boldly. He turned generals' minds from certain massacres. He ruined factories. He redirected trains. He placed dreams in the sleep of presidents and doubts in the hearts of kings. Thousands lived who would have died. Thousands died elsewhere because history denied one road, found another. He learned the first law of power. Every prevented tragedy casts a shadow of unseen consequence. Gellert learned the second. People forgive control when they are afraid enough. By the time the International Confederation formally condemned them, half its delegates owed their lives to Albus' hidden work, and the other half feared Gellert's open wrath. The condemnation passed by a narrow margin. 3 signatories resigned within the month. 1 vanished. 1 joined them. Then Britain sent an envoy. Not a minister. Not an Auror. Aberforth came alone.